Hi everyone. Today we did go a little bit lower off of that kind of lower high setup. We now have a low, lower, low. We have a base in here at the trend line. Are we going to bounce through here, or is this going to be a longer term downtrend? Let's take a look at all of the charts. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. Moving over to the news, Tesla did approve Elon's $1 trillion pay package, which seems bananas. I don't even really understand what that means, especially for a company that's only worth about $1.5 trillion. Are they giving him a $1 trillion package? Did they even pay out his last package? It's really hard to say, but it was well received at 75%. Everyone seemed to approve it, and really what this is supposed to do is give Elon more control over Tesla. He's concerned that he had sold too much of the company and he wanted more shares, but either way, it's a massive net worth add. You can see this would increase his ownership from about 13% to 25%, adding about 423 million shares to his holdings. And it says here the first tranche would get paid out if Tesla hits a $2 trillion market cap. And like I said, right now they're at about $1.5 trillion. So it has to go up another $500 million, $500 billion for him to make any money on this. And it says here, if all 9 tranches were paid at their value increments of 500 billion, all 9 tranches would be awarded to Elon if Tesla's value increased in increments of 500 billion up to $6.5 trillion. So is Tesla going to get to $6.5 trillion, increasing Elon's holdings to that $1 trillion mark? And it says here that means Tesla would be worth $8.5 trillion for that full pay package. So Elon absolutely shooting for the moon once again. Is he going to make it? Elon seems to think so, and if he believes so, it's hard to bet against him. Usually he meets his goals eventually, not usually on time, so keep that in mind. Moving over to fear and greed, we're at a 24 from a 24 yesterday. Didn't go any lower even with that sell-off today. Still fear on momentum, extreme fear on pretty much every other metric except for volatility. Did spike up again. Still expecting this to hit that kind of 28 area. We'll see if it gets there in the near term. And then looking at safe haven demand, spiking up just a little bit, interesting. And then same here for junk bonds, still extreme fear, but that ratio is going up just a little bit as well. Moving over to the earnings calendar, you can see pretty much nothing for today, but everything across the board was really good. Wanted to highlight Datadog doing extremely well and massively beating on earnings, and they were up about 20%. So Datadog, the big beat for the day, absolutely massive. Otherwise, mostly green across the board. Heard of a couple of companies tanking today, but nothing really crazy. None of the major companies that I saw. And then for tomorrow, pretty much nothing as well. Duke Energy is kind of the big one, as well as Constellation Energy. Moving over to the SPY charts here, you can see that low, lower low structure that we're seeing on the short time frames. This is still quite bearish in the short term, continues to be a little bit bearish here, but what I did want to highlight is the clear divergence on the RSI. You can see that initial low was oversold condition at a 27, but this second low here was around a 40 on the RSI, and then we rallied up there. So that indicates that we should see at least a little bit of a retracement to the bull side. You can see it was down a little bit over 1% on the day. Now we're starting to look at that trend structure. This trend structure needs to hold here, which it absolutely could. You can see we had a massive bear day. I thought this was going to be kind of a culmination moment, and it wasn't. We ended up consolidating and pushing higher. Is this another consolidation moment at the trend structure? Get back above the level there, 672.37, and then get that resumption push? Absolutely a possibility. We saw bearish momentum, oversold conditions, all that stuff here. We're kind of in that same situation. Just need to watch this area. If it can hold, we'll be in good shape. Look for that higher high. This would still be a low, higher low structure here. But like I said, short-term structure is still bearish. Moving over to the Tasty charts here, you can see still very much bullish conditions. That 8 EMA was resistance. Don't love to see that. You can see it was resistance here. We sold off a couple of times. Resistance here, sold off. Your trailing stop is 665.12, and that next support is going to be the 55 EMA at 662.19. Right now, we're watching that 34 EMA, 669.75, came right to that level and held for the session. So that's good. Would like to see that hold. Maybe that's the zone that holds. You can see we overthrew that last time, ended up holding that in here before we got that bigger move up. So that's the medium term outlook. Looking at that shorter time frame, this is not great here. We have all the EMAs and SMAs broken on the 4-hour chart, and now we're looking for that lowest ATR band as a target to the downside. If we were to sell off, that would be kind of in that 665.85 area. So about another 1% lower to hit that target. And then looking at the hourly chart, pretty clean sell here. We were back into bullish conditions, hit that 144, hit that zone of resistance, and immediately sold in the pre-market, took out that trailing stop, of course. This was kind of always bearish conditions, but confirmation to bearish conditions, and this is continuing to slope down here. Moving over to the NASDAQ, same thesis as everything else, sold off a little bit more, 1.86%, right to my level, 611.75. We were right at it there. Tested that level and then bounced into the end of the session, bounced into the after hours. So we held the level on a closing basis, held the level on that current price action, 613.36. Like to see this continue to drift higher into this zone here around 622 or so. We're below everything on the short time frames. Don't love that. We're below the 21, below VWAP. Again, need to see it hold here if it's going to do it. Otherwise, this could go pretty substantially here. Let's go ahead and extend this out a little bit. In there, that gives you some trend support around 602, 55 EMAs down there, 597. So again, similar to the SPY chart, this is still a bullish structure. We overthrew that 21 last time, did not overthrow the 55. You can see we tested this structure back here and then rallied up. So we could see a continuation rally, but for now, like I said, short-term bearish. Moving over to the Tasty charts here, you can see that same kind of structure, hit that 144, hit that 144 again before selling off and continuing to sell through the session. And then looking at that 4-hour chart, same as those SPY charts, broke below all the EMAs. And then looking at that 4-hour chart, you can see we sold below all the EMAs and SMAs, which of course is definitely bearish. Lowest ATR band here is going to be 606. For tomorrow. And then looking at that daily chart, you can see we're not quite at the trailing stop here, still bullish conditions at 608.87, still holding this area, still holding that 34 EMA. I want to see that hold as well. That is at 609.62. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow. The Russell did sell off pretty aggressively, dipping below my level there, 241.05, sold off almost 2%, 1.77% momentum bearish, RSI bearish, below that 55 EMA after tagging the level 244.46. We did get a little bit of a bounce in the after hours. You can see here it's back up to 241.03, just below the level. Want to see it get back above there, and you can see that same kind of divergence that we saw on the Qs chart and the SPY charts. You have some strength in here, looking for a little bit of a bounce tomorrow. We'll see if that holds. And then looking at the Dow, same zone here, VWAP 21 EMA as support at 468.40. Looking for that zone to hold, looking for the trend line to hold, and look for a push to that next trend line. Otherwise, if this breaks, this could be a bigger sell. Moving over to the Mag 7. Mag 7 did exactly what you would expect. Continued to sell at 2.2%, broke below that 55, looking for that next zone of support, 357.91. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. This is starting to look a little bit more aggressive of a sell. You can see we've had some sells in here before that rally here. Got a kind of a topping pattern, gap down. We're kind of almost to this low here. I wouldn't say it's structurally broken yet. Could certainly hold this area with a low, kind of higher low here and get that bigger continuation. Would be pretty aggressive, but it's definitely starting to show signs of weakness. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple unchanged once again, still in the same consolidations, hanging in there really, really well. And then look at Microsoft, crazy sell, almost 2% there. Broke this structure. We said as soon as 506 went, you're looking for this zone here. If that goes, that 144 is the next one at 487 in here. And then the next level is 466. So watch this. This is a broader topping pattern. Peak, sold aggressively over the last several trading days. You can see straight down across the board here on volume. Pretty aggressive selling. Again, Microsoft is going to be worth money in the future, of course. So this will be bought up, but in the short term, this is pretty aggressive selling. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla swung down 3.5%. It did do okay considering they decided to pay Elon $1 trillion, but that is only if the company goes to $8.5 trillion, which seems like a pretty good deal, honestly. Pay him $1 trillion to make the company go many, many times more than it's worth right now. And then looking at NVIDIA, sold off 3.65% there. Looks like this is headed back for support at that kind of 184 area, that 55 EMA area around that same zone. If this breaks below here, this is going to sell off pretty aggressively, but for now, this just continues to look like a bullish structure, and we're setting up for a higher low ultimately. Moving over to staples and discretionary. Staples hung in there at the level, overthrew it briefly, and then closed back above at 75.40, and then you can see discretionaries came down to the trend line, sold off over 2%. This is still a topping pattern for me. If this sells below this kind of midpoint here, that's going to be a double top, and we're probably going to see a lot more selling, probably at least down to that 144 EMA, down to 222.40, which would be a pretty substantial sell from here. Moving over to breadth. Breadth continues to sell. You can see we sold off here today, down around 6%, really in the same region that we've been in, continues to sit at a pretty low level in that kind of 38 area. Anything below 50 is typically pretty bearish. And we're kind of sitting in this zone, allowing the market to kind of fall, while market breadth is continuing to be pretty weak. And it still looks like a little bit of a base in here, but with the sells that we're seeing, I would expect this to go a little bit lower. Need to see one of those critically low levels before we see a true bottom put in. Moving over to the dollar. Dollar did fall as we kind of suspected that it would off that first touch of the 200. Fell to that 9 EMA area around 99.6. Want to see it hold this area and get that push through this 200. That's the major overhead resistance. If it holds here and rallies, that's going to be super bullish. Continues to look really bullish. It was overbought. We kind of knew that it was going to pull back a little bit. Question is how much of a pullback. If it holds here, that's going to be great. If it pulls back to the 21, that's still okay. If it's too much below that, that's going to be more concerning. But for now, we're kind of holding in this area. Moving over to bonds, JNK and TLT both positive on the day. JNK still holding this level at 96.51. TLT up almost 1% off of this level. We said 96.16 was going to be interesting. Tagged that level yesterday, gapped up and rallied a little bit off of it. Momentum stepping to bullish. Maybe we get some continuation here towards that next area. Don't love the structure. Would have liked to see it hold a higher low in here, but this is pretty much a double bottom in here. Now this looks more like a left shoulder head, right shoulder forming. So you get that right shoulder and then a bigger breakdown, but I do like this, and this should be a little bit of a safe haven. Stocks are selling off, so TLT should be getting a little bit of buying pressure. Moving over to the VIX. VIX was positive as we suspected that it would be. Held this structure in here, still right at that 20 level. Still think this is going to go to 28 at least before this does kind of top out. Might go a little bit higher on this second spike. We'll see. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. Moving over to my accounts, of course, everything went down pretty much to the same place I was at yesterday. Here you can see 142.5. I think that was at pretty much what I was at yesterday. And then in terms of positions, I rolled to 241 for tomorrow on the Russell. It's pretty much just below there. I was kind of hoping we would be able to hold a little better and get assigned on that, but didn't work out that way. Decided to hang on to it one more day here. We'll see if we can get a little bit of a bounce. If it does continue to sell, of course, I'm going to be out of that position. And then same thing here for the Qs. Pretty much flat after hours, right at that level 611 area. It's right at my strike here. This expires on Monday, so pretty much right at it. Waiting to see if I can get out of this position. Probably could get out of it tomorrow. We'll see. I'm really hoping for just a little bit of a kind of dead cat bounce or a little bit of a slight bounce tomorrow, and then we'll see what happens after that. And then you can see dollar sold off. This is in a slightly losing position, a little bit more than it was yesterday. Either way, I think the dollar does look okay where it's at. If it does hold here and rally, that's going to be really strong. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of that $1 trillion pay package. I know it sounds insane, but is it worth it to make Tesla $8.5 billion? Super high goals, super high payouts. Let me know what you think. Otherwise, like and subscribe. If you got any value out of this video, make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.